The Daughters of the Late Colonel by Katherine Mansfield. The week after was one of the busiest of their lives. Even when they went to bed, it was only their bodies that lay down and they rested. Their minds went on, thinking things out, talking things over, wondering, deciding, trying to remember where. Constantia lay like a statue, her hands by her sides, her feet just overlapping each other, the sheet up to her chin. She stared at the ceiling. Do you think father would mind if we gave his top hat to the porter? The porter, snapped Josephine. Why ever the porter? What a very extraordinary idea. Because, said Constantia slowly, he must often have to go to funerals, and I noticed at the cemetery that he only had a bowler. She paused. I thought then how very much he'd appreciate a top hat. We ought to give him a present, too. He was always very nice to father. But, cried Josephine, flouncing on her pillow and staring across the dark at Constantia, father's head, and suddenly, for one awful moment, she nearly giggled. Not, of course, that she felt in the least like giggling. It must have been habit. Years ago, when they had stayed awake at night talking, their beds had simply heaved, and now the porter's head, disappearing, popped out like a candle under father's hat. The giggle mounted. She clenched her hands. She fought it down. She frowned fiercely at the dark and said, Remember, terribly sternly, we can decide tomorrow, she said. Constantia had noticed nothing. She sighed. Do you think we ought to have our dressing gowns dyed as well? Black, almost shrieked Josephine. Well, what else? Said Constantia. I was thinking it doesn't seem quite sincere, in a way, to wear black out of doors and when we're fully dressed, and then when we're at home. But nobody sees us, said Josephine. She gave the bedclothes such a twitch that both her feet became uncovered, and she had to creep up the pillows to get them well under again. Kate does, said Constantia, and the postman very well might. Josephine thought of her dark red slippers, which matched her dressing gown, and of Constantia's favorite indefinite green ones, which went with hers, black, 2 black dressing gowns, and 2 pairs of black woolly slippers, creeping off to the bathroom like black cats. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, said she. Silence. Then Constantia said, We shall have to post the papers with the notice in them tomorrow to catch the Ceylon mail. How many letters have we had up till now? 23. Josephine had replied to them all, and 23 times when she came to, We miss our dear father so much. She had broken down, and had to use her handkerchief, and on some of them even to soak up a very light blue tear with an edge of blotting paper. Strange, she couldn't have put it on, but 23 times, even now, though, when she said over to herself sadly, We miss our dear father so much, she could have cried if she wanted to. Have you got enough stamps? Came from Constantia. Oh, how can I tell? Said Josephine crossly. What's the good of asking me that now? I was just wondering, said Constantia mildly. Silence again. There came a low rustle, a scurry, a hop. A mouse, said Constantia. It can't be a mouse because there aren't any crumbs, said Josephine. But it doesn't know there aren't, said Constantia. A spasm of pity squeezed her heart. Poor little thing. She wished she could left a tiny piece of biscuit on the dressing table. It was awful to think of not finding anything. What to do? What would it do? I can't think of how they managed to live at all, she said slowly. Who? Demanded Josephine, and Constantia said even more loudly than she meant to, Mice. Josephine was furious. Oh, what nonsense, Con, she said. What have mice got to do with it? You're asleep. I don't think I am, said Constantia. She shut her eyes and to make sure she was. Josephine arched her spine, pulled up her knees, folded her arms so that her fists came under her ears, and pressed her cheek hard against the pillow. Chapter 2. Another thing which complicated matters was they had Nurse Andrews staying on with them that week. It was their own fault. They had asked her. It was Josephine's idea. On the last morning, when the doctor had gone, Josephine had said to Constantia, "Don't you think it would be rather nice if we asked Nurse Andrews to stay on for a week as our guest?" "Very nice," said Constantia. "I thought," went on Josephine quickly, "I should say this afternoon, after I've paid her. My sister and I would be very pleased. After all you've done us, after all you've done for us, Nurse Andrews. If you would stay on for a week as our guest, I'd have to put that in about being our guest in case." "Oh, but she could hardly expect to be paid," cried Constantia. "One never knows," said Josephine sagely. Nurse Andrews had, of course, jumped at the idea, but it was a bother. It meant they had to have regular sit-down meals at the proper times, whereas if they'd been alone, they could have just asked Kate if she wouldn't have minded bringing them a tray wherever they were. And meal times, now that the strain was over, were rather a trial. Nurse Andrews was simply fearful about butter. Really, they couldn't help feeling that about butter. At least she took advantage of their kindness, and she had that maddening habit of asking for an inch more of bread to finish what she had on her plate, and then at the last mouthful, absent-mindedly, of course, it wasn't absent-mindedly, taking another helping. Josephine got very red when this happened, and she fastened her small, bead-like eyes on the tablecloth as if she saw a minute, strange insect creeping through the web of it. But Constantia's long, pale face lengthened and set, and she gazed away, far over the desert, to where that link of camels unwound like a thread of wool. "When I was with Lady Tukes," said Nurse Andrews, she had such a dainty little contrivance for the butter. It was a silver cupid balanced on the border of the glass dish, holding a tiny fork, and when you wanted some butter, you simply pressed his foot, and he bent down and speared you over a piece. It was quite a gamey. Josephine could hardly bear that. "But I think those things are very extravagant," was all she said. "But why?" asked Nurse Andrews, beaming through eyeglasses. "No one, surely, could take more butter than one wanted. Would one?" "Rincon!" cried Josephine. She couldn't trust herself to reply, and proud young Kate, the enchanted princess, came to see what the old tabbies wanted now. She snatched away the plates of mock something or other and slapped down a white, terrified blancmange. "Jam, please, Kate," said Josephine kindly. Kate knelt and burst open the sideboard, lifted the lid of a jam pot, and saw it was empty, put it on the table, and stalked off. "I'm afraid," said Nurse Andrews a moment later, "there isn't any." "Oh, what a bother," said Josephine. She bit her lip. "What had we better do?" Constantia looked dubious. "We can't disturb Kate again," she said softly. Nurse Andrews waited, smiling at them both. Her eyes wandered, spying at everything behind her eyeglasses. Constantia, on despair, went back to her camels. Josephine frowned heavily, concentrated, and hadn't been for this idiotic woman, she and Con would, of course, had eaten their blancmange without. Suddenly the idea came. "I know," she said. "Marmalade. There's some marmalade in the sideboard. Get it, Con." "I hope," laughed Nurse Andrews, and her laugh was like a spoon tingling against the medicine glass. "I hope it's not very bitter marmalade." Yeah, so that's all I'm gonna read for this because I always forget when I open up these hour-long stories. I can't read through the whole thing because my attention span isn't good enough. I'm not actually getting better at reading when I read these, so because my attention span is really poor. Maybe this story isn't captivating enough. I don't know. I will say that I give the story one thumb up and one thumb down for not captivating me enough to read the whole thing. I only read maybe 30% of it, maybe 25% of it. I don't know. Maybe 40% of it. I don't know. maybe I think it was like 20. I think I read about 25% of it. If you want to read the rest of it, you can go look it up yourself on what is it? AmericanLiterature.com. Katherine Mansfield, the daughter of the late Colonel. Sometimes I can't finish these stories. I just try to read because it makes me a better person to try to become better at reading. Anyways, let me know in the comments below, what did you think of the first 2 chapters of the story or whatever it was. Please subscribe to this channel to be part of the community and watch me attempt to read stories and not finish them. Sometimes I read stories. Sometimes I finish stories, but sometimes I just can't because I picked one that's too long. I have to remember in the future to pick ones that are shorter. So please subscribe to this channel to be part of the community. Please like this video if you liked it. Please comment. Helps the channel a lot. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.